Namo Phat. Good morning. Thanks for joining me for a daily practice check-in. Listen, listen, listen. This beautiful sound calls us back to our true home. The first mindfulness training. Aware of the suffering caused by the destruction of life, I vow to cultivate compassion and learn ways to protect the lives of people, animals, plants, and minerals. I'm determined not to kill, not to let others kill, and not to condone any act of killing in the world, in my thinking, or in my way of life. We're reading Ajahn Amaro's book, Catastrophe, Apostrophe, for our Dharma lessons. This morning we're beginning a section on feeling, conditions, craving, exile from the garden. When we look at the links of dependent origination, the first four of these, ignorance, formations, consciousness, mind, and body, can be seen to set up the subject-object duality, the feeling of me and the world. The next three, the six sense spheres, sense contact and feeling, describe the arising of a particular sense event, seeing, hearing, tasting, smelling, touching, or thinking, something in particular. This brings us to the realm of feeling, Vedana or sensation. When things have reached this stage, it can still be very simple. The mind can still be clear and peaceful while there is contact and feeling going on. Consider enlightened beings like the Buddha. They see, they hear, they smell, they taste, they touch, they feel. That realm of perception and feeling can be completely free of suffering and difficulty. When I first began to look closely into Paticca Samuppada, I was confounded by a number of its mysteries. I could not work out what the whole pattern was referring to. With a vague memory in mind and intrigued by how ignorance or innocence, desire, and suffering seemed to be themes in common, I searched out a copy of the Bible and found, in the first chapter of Genesis, a mythical Judaic version of the Paticca Samuppada. One can reflect that this process, described so thoroughly in the Pali Canon, is related to that primal theme of the Bible. The realm of feeling is like life in the Garden of Eden. It can be very pleasant and very simple. The trouble begins when Tanha shows up. That's the serpent. What dependent origination describes is the emergence of suffering out of perfection, the emergence of pain and difficulty out of that which is pure and whole. The way the King James Version of the Bible begins is, "In the beginning God created the heaven and the earth." But I feel that what is meant is more along the lines of, it is out of God, out of perfect unity, that division emerges. I should explain a little how I have arrived at this. I found that this phrase, "in the beginning," in reflective experience suggested to me when a pattern appears, when the experience of a thing begins, there emerges self and other, subject and object, this and that. Heaven, in this respect, represents that which is elsewhere, earth, that which is here. That division between here and there, subject and object, occurs when something begins and is known, when a world comes into being. After the heavens and the earth are created, there are a series of images, beginning with, "And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters." We can look at this part of the process as the arrival of consciousness. This consciousness is established in relationship to the world, just as Vijnana and Namarupa lean upon each other and form a reciprocal relationship, that Vijnana Nama Rupa vortex mentioned earlier. In this world, the land and the waters are created, as well as all of the animals and creatures. We can see as signifying the development of materiality and mentality, bodies and minds, this leading on to Salayatana, the 6 sense spheres and their functions, the different ways of perceiving the world and of living life, different ways of being. This is comparable to sense contact, phassa. Then there is the arising of humanity, Adam and Eve, man and woman, and their life together in the garden. This takes us up to the point of sensation or feeling, which is unself-conscious. Now, it is at this turn that the serpent comes along, and it represents, understandably enough, temptation or desire. Desire comes along and says, "Here's the tree of knowledge, standing right in the middle of the garden. You could help yourself. There's more to life than just being in the garden like this, you know." The snake has its charms, and soon desire turns into clinging as Eve and Adam eat the fruit of the tree. From this follows becoming, as knowledge and self-consciousness arise, and then comes rebirth. Suddenly Adam and Eve realize they are naked. There's the shock of birth as the Master appears on the scene. "Adam, where are you?" The natural consequence of the moment of birth, when Adam and Eve are discovered, is represented as God's judgment and the punishment he puts upon them. So they find themselves driven out of Eden, exiled from the garden, sensitive, open, separated, and subject to all types of suffering. They are born into the world feeling heat and cold, hunger, aging and death, sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief, and despair. Or, to paraphrase Genesis chapter 3, "All the days of your lives you will toil with sweat and bring forth children in pain." In the realm of feeling, there can be a lot of clarity and wisdom. There is the body and the life of the senses, and then the experience of feeling, pleasant, painful, or neutral feelings. That on its own doesn't cause any difficulty at all. It is very simple, and the heart can be completely awake and at peace with it. But the stronger the influence of ignorance, not seeing clearly, the lack of wisdom, the lack of mindfulness, the more the mind will believe in those feelings of liking, disliking, and neutral feeling, and will tend to be intoxicated by them. If there is a lack of mindfulness and wisdom, then, when there is a feeling of dislike, it turns easily into, "I hate it. I can't stand it. I've got to get away from this." Similarly, if it is an experience of liking, and if there is a lack of mindfulness and wisdom, and the liking turns into, "Oh, this is great. I want this. I've got to have this," and the mind chases after that desire object. May all beings be well. May all beings be happy. May all beings be peaceful. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thanks for joining me today.